About those baby animals. I could hear you girls going, "Ah," through the computer. Well, they are cute, aren't they? I love baby animals. We're changing gears today. We've been talking in this unit 5, for the first 3 lessons about plants. And we've learned a lot about plants, haven't we? With the different parts of plants, the roots, the stems, the leaves, the flowers, that plants make food through photosynthesis, taking in the carbon dioxide and sunlight and water, and producing oxygen and sugar. And that's those fruit that we eat off plants. That's why they're sweet so often. We looked at germination, how plants start with a seed and they sprout. Yesterday's lesson was how they sprout at different times. Then they grow and they mature and they flower again and produce more seeds. We got into the different parts one day of a flower and talked about how that pollen goes from flower to flower, from the stamen that produces the pollen, and the bee lands it, gets the pollen on it, and takes it to the pistil of another flower, and it goes down inside the pistil, and it forms the seeds there and starts to grow. So we've learned a lot about plants, a whole lot about plants. And today we're ready to move on to the next topic in this unit, which is animals, obviously. So just like plants have a life cycle, animals have a life cycle. They start small, some animals from an egg, not a seed, but from an egg, until they grow big and they make their own animals, make animals. Animals make more animals, make baby animals, which is the video you watched. And that's how animals reproduce. They produce little baby animals. And we like that because they're cute, right? Even you're an animal. You were once a little baby too, weren't you? And so animals produce babies. And so today's lesson is, how do animals do that? So here we go. Let's get into the book. You need to have your book open to page 232. So pause the video if you need to and get your book out. Lots of pretty animal pictures in this lesson today. All right, here we go. Life in full circle. Like plants, animals have life cycles. Animals are born and then begin to grow up. When animals become adults, they may have young of their own. In this way, life continues to renew itself. So when a bird reaches adulthood, it mates with another bird. After mating, the female bird lays an egg, and birds hatch from the egg. Over time, the baby bird grows. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. After the eggs hatch, the parents feed the young birds. And over time, the bird grows, and soon it can live on its own. And then the whole cycle goes over again. That's why this is called the life cycle. It just repeats itself over and over. Your grandparents had your parents when your mom or your dad was a little baby. Then they grew up and they had you and you were a little baby. And one day you'll grow up and maybe have your own children. So it's a cycle, isn't it? It keeps going and going. All right. Use the terms on the right to identify the correct stages in life. Well, I guess we better read this down here first. Most animals reproduce sexually. During sexual reproduction, sperm from a male joins an egg from a female. The fertilized egg can then develop into a new animal. In some animals, such as many kinds of fish, eggs are fertilized outside the female's body. In other animals, such as birds, eggs are fertilized inside the female's body. After the eggs are fertilized, birds lay the eggs. Bird parents then protect the eggs until they have hatched. After the young are born, they begin to grow and change. Over time, newborns develop into youths. Youths continue to develop until they grow into adults. Adult animals mate with one another to produce offspring. An animal's life cycle ends when the animal dies. However, the animal's offspring will likely have offspring of their own. And this way, the life cycle repeats itself again and again. So what's this right here? That looks like we got seals right here. One is an adult, one's a newborn, and one's a youth. I would say this is the newborn, wouldn't you? And it's hard to tell between these two. That one looks a little smaller, though. I think that's the youth. And here's the adult. And we've got a little deer rather here. There's a newborn deer. And the youth, he's not quite got his antlers yet. And now he's got his antlers. He's an adult. Bringing up baby. Like birds, many other animals hatch out of eggs. For example, most fish, reptiles, and spiders hatch from eggs. Other animals give birth to live young. Dogs, horses, and mice are all born this way. What happens after an animal is born? Some animals, such as turtles, are on their own as soon as they hatch from their eggs. Their parents do not help them. That's sad, isn't it? They just got to find their way to the water and get going with life. Other animals, such as penguins, give their young a great deal of care. You've seen that. I mean, you've watched the movie Happy Feet, seen that probably in that pretend cartoon version of penguins. They keep their young warm and fed until the young grow strong enough to take care of themselves. Animals such as deer, bears, and rabbits take care of their young by feeding them milk. These animals may stay with their parents for months or years or until they're able to live on their own. Birds' eggshells are hard, but alligators and other reptiles have soft, leathery shells, so you couldn't crack them open. They're more like leather, like a baseball glove material, but thinner. So they are not like a chicken egg that you eat for breakfast. Here come some little alligators out, little baby alligators. You know what young kangaroos are called? Anybody know? They're called joeys. Joeys. There's a little joey. When kangaroos are born, they're about the size of a dime. Wow, that's tiny. Then they develop in their mother's pouch. Cats give birth to live young. Young cats drink their mother's milk. Here's a math problem. Raccoons usually give birth to 3 to 5 young at one time. Raccoons give birth only once a year. Suppose a female raccoon lives for 10 years. She's able to give birth for 9 of those years. How many offspring will she have? Well, this is the multiplication we've been working on. If she had 3 every time, we'd have 9 times 3 is what? She could have 27 babies in her lifetime. Or if she had 5 every time, she'd have 9 times 5. She might have 45 babies in her lifetime. It's a lot of babies. A lot of cute little baby raccoons. Growing up. Just like other animals, humans go through stages of development. After you hatched out of your egg, right? No. But after a human egg's fertilized, it grows inside the mother. And after 9 months, the baby is born. It takes many years for a human baby to grow into an adult. Study these pages to see all the growth stages humans go through. All right, so here's number 1. When babies are born, they drink their mother's milk. They have no teeth. They're not able to walk on their own. There's a little baby. I bet you have some baby pictures of you, don't you, that are cute. Maybe you can show us a baby picture of you in our Google Meet if you want to. Did you have hair when you were born? Some babies don't have any hair. Babies grow into toddlers. Toddlers learn how to walk. They also start learning how to speak. Humans get their first set of teeth when they're toddlers. When you were 2 or 3 years old, maybe you started to run around the house and you started getting teeth, maybe before you were 2 or 3. It's been a while since I had I had a daughter that was 2 or 3. It's been a long time. But you start growing up, a baby, a toddler, number 3. As a child develops, the first set of teeth is replaced by permanent teeth. I bet you're about this boy's age. The child grows and develops many physical and mental skills. So I bet you some of you have started losing your baby teeth, haven't you? And getting your adult teeth coming in because you're growing up. Number 4, during the teenage years, boys and girls start looking more like adults. Boys start getting some facial hair. They'll have to start shaving before too long. 5, during adulthood, people reach maturity. Often adults marry and have children of their own. And then 6, as an adult ages, they lose some of their physical abilities. The body changes in other ways as well. For example, hair turns gray. Yeah, I'm getting a few gray hairs on my head as well. Oh, I skipped that part. The growth chart, you could get I bet some of your parents might already have a growth chart, but you could measure yourself right now and you could measure yourself a year from now and see how much you grow each year. You could record it, make observations like a scientist does. Sorry. My, how you've changed. A young frog or tadpole has a long tail and no legs. As it grows, its tail becomes shorter and it begins to grow legs. As an adult frog has no tail but legs. The young go through a series of changes known as, this is a big word, metamorphosis. Now, when you were born, you had 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes, and you didn't look exactly like you look now, but Your whole body didn't change shape, but that does with frogs, doesn't it? Frogs start as a tadpole, look more like a fish, no legs and a tail. And as they grow up, that tail gets shorter and the legs start growing. And so they look like a whole new animal by the time they get to be an adult. And that big change is called metamorphosis. Butterflies do the same thing, don't they? Butterflies start out as an egg, okay? And then they come out of the egg as a larva, like a caterpillar as we know them. Egg, larva, and then pupa, which is we call a cocoon or a chrysalis. And then when they come out of that, they're an adult butterfly. So just like plants have life cycles, animals have life cycles, these kind of animals that go through metamorphosis, complete metamorphosis, have a special life cycle from egg to larva to pupa to adult. We'll look at that a little more closely later. And some animals go through incomplete metamorphosis. Remember, the complete metamorphosis has 4 parts: egg, larva, pupa, adult. Incomplete metamorphosis only has 3 parts. They go from eggs to a nymph, which is like a little baby grasshopper, and then they turn into an adult. The nymph is just a smaller version of that. So the female grasshopper lays eggs in the soil. Grasshoppers go through incomplete metamorphosis. Young grasshoppers hatch as nymphs, just little baby looking grasshoppers. A nymph grows and molts. Grasshoppers will molt 5 times. That means they shed their skin and grow a bigger skin before they reach the adult stage. In many animals, the young look similar to the adults, but in other animals, the young look very different. It's what we've been reading about. In complete metamorphosis, an animal goes through 4 different stages in its life cycle. The egg hatches into a larva. The larvae of many insects look like worms. A larva develops into a pupa. The pupa of a moth is enclosed in a cocoon. While in the cocoon, the pupa develops into an adult moth. The adult splits its cocoon and flies out. Some insects, such as dragonflies and termites, go through a different series of changes. In incomplete metamorphosis, an animal goes through 3 different stages in its life cycle. First, the animal hatches from the egg as a nymph. Nymphs look like tiny adults, but they don't have wings. As the nymph grows larger, it molts. Molding happens when an insect sheds its hard outer skeleton. After several moltings, the insect, which now has wings, reaches its adult stage. Why all this matters? Saving the sea turtles. Some kind of animals are endangered. That means there are not many of them left. So scientists study the life cycle of endangered animals to try to save them and help them increase their numbers. Sea turtles are one example of an endangered animal. Hunting, pollution, and beach erosion have caused the number of sea turtles to go down. To help sea turtles, people have learned about the sea turtle's life cycle. They've used what they have learned to rear sea turtles. Grow means to raise. The turtles are then released into the wild. Over time, scientists hope this will help increase the number of sea turtles. So these are people and scientists trying to collect the eggs and make sure these eggs grow and develop and get to grow into an adult. So there's more sea turtles. When the eggs hatch, the young turtles are cared for until they can be released into the wild. When the turtles are ready, they can be taken to a beach and released. All right, so we're going to sum it all up now. So these 5 right here, I want you to write the words in the blanks here. Do them in your book. So grab a pen, pencil, pause the video if you need to, and write them in your book. The blue word is wrong. We've got to change the blue word into the right word. So most animals grow from a fertilized sperm cell. No, most animals grow from a fertilized egg cell. So change that to egg. Some animals, such as cows, cats, and rabbits, give birth to their live young and care for the young by feeding them. Now, they don't feed them worms. Do you see a mama cow feeding her baby cow worms? What's that baby cow do? He drinks milk from its mama, doesn't it? So, right, milk over here instead of worms. Number 3, after human babies are born, they develop into, we read, these 2 should be switched. The first one should be toddlers. they develop into toddlers, and then they eventually grow into teenagers and then adults. Switch those two, right? Toddlers on the first line, teenagers on the second line. Animals that have a larva stage and a pupa stage undergo, that should be complete metamorphosis. That's hard to write on that line, but right, complete metamorphosis. While animals that have a nymph stage undergo incomplete. So those should just be reversed. Remember, complete metamorphosis, egg, larva, pupa, adult. Incomplete is egg, nymph, adult. Humans can try to help endangered animals by rearing them. That's not a word you hear very often, but raising them and releasing them into cities? No, we would release them into the wild. So write wild on that line. All right, let's match these word pictures here. I want you to do this with me. I'm not just doing this for me because I already know this. I want you to do it with me in your book, okay? So match the word to the correct picture. So complete metamorphosis, that's egg, larva, pupa, adult. You see it here? Egg, larva, pupa, adult. Well, that's not the one given. The one given is the tadpole one. So egg, tadpole, and it changes completely. It's complete. A frog goes through complete metamorphosis, even though it's kind of got a different 4 stages. So we're going to put E on line number 1. That's complete metamorphosis because it changes completely. And then we're going to put F on number 2, incomplete metamorphosis, egg, nymph, adult. This looks just like this. It's just much smaller. So that's incomplete metamorphosis because it's not completely changing. It's just growing. 3, larva. Larva is like the worm or the caterpillar part. So that's A. So put an A beside number 3. 4, nymph. Nymph is like a small version. So I'm going to guess that's supposed to be a little grasshopper there. So we'll put a C on 4. 5 is molt. That's when it comes out of its skin and grows bigger. That looks like that's what's happening here. So put a B beside 5, molt. And a pupa, it's like a cocoon, what we might call a cocoon. So put a D beside 6, cocoon. Number 2, circle the animals that hatch from eggs. Okay, well, we know that lizards, reptiles, hatch from eggs. So circle the lizard. Weasels, they're born live, or a meerkat, I guess. Kitty cats are born live. They don't hatch, your cat doesn't lay eggs, does it? Sheep are born live, but a bird lays an egg. So you need to circle a lizard and the stork there. Okay, the life cycle of an eagle. An eagle. Well, it would start with an egg, wouldn't it? And then it would be a little baby eagle sitting in the nest being fed by its mama. And then it would be a big eagle soaring through the sky. If you want to draw that, you can. Number 4 says, use the Venn diagram below to compare complete metamorphosis and incomplete metamorphosis. Okay, well, what do? They both start with an egg, right? So they both start with an egg and they both end with an adult. But it's what happens in between that's different. So they both have an egg and they both end an adult, but in complete metamorphosis, it goes egg, larva, the caterpillar, the pupa, the cocoon, and then the adult. Incomplete metamorphosis, it just goes egg, nymph, like a little one, adult. So that's the difference. 5, circle the one that undergoes incomplete metamorphosis. Incomplete metamorphosis. Well, we had a grasshopper earlier, didn't we? It's egg, nymph, adult. Okay. All right, moving on. Oh, we don't have to because that's the end of the lesson. Okay, then. There was no vocabulary words. Can you believe it? I guess these are our vocabulary words from today. Okay. You don't have an assignment today, but I want you to make sure you watch the lesson tomorrow, and we'll work with some of these words and make sure you understand this even better. Hope you have a good day. See you later.